Root cause analysis. Kendall Graber, Biologic Specialist, Inspection Compliance, CVB. The objective of this presentation is to provide guidance in performing root cause analysis investigations. Consistent production and testing of veterinary biological product requires quality management procedures to ensure the uniformity and consistency of the processes. It's the intent of this presentation to explain the difference between correction and corrective action, to define the steps used to identify the root cause of a problem and address or eliminate it, and to describe how to determine if a corrective action was effective. Correction versus corrective action. A correction fixes the immediate nonconformance. A corrective action addresses the cause of the nonconformance so it does not reoccur. Corrections can stop the bleeding but do not necessarily address the reason for a wound. Corrective actions are put in place to address the reason for the bleeding and prevent additional wounds from occurring from the same cause. In certain instances, an isolated nonconformance may require only a correction. For instance, if two pages stuck together and resulted in misfiling. Two pages stuck together may simply mean that the next time you need to pay more attention. It may not require the need to implement corrective action. However, deviations may require corrective action. If the pages continue to stick together or misfiling continues, you should try to determine why it is repeating. If something continues, something else is wrong which is causing it. Every nonconformance should undergo a thorough root cause analysis. Root cause is the fundamental initiating cause in a causal chain leading to a failure of a process which results in a recurrence of the problem. Root cause is the factor that, when addressed and corrected, ensures that the problem doesn't come back. Root cause analysis is a systematic, documented approach to get to the true root cause of a problem. Any deviation, regardless of presumptive risk, must undergo the same detailed and documented product marketing risk evaluation. It is CVB's expectation that the licensee or permittee should have a documented, systematic approach to dealing with deviations to the outline of production or the regulations. When the true root cause is addressed and corrected, the problem should not come back. Root cause analysis is not a process of finding someone to blame. As an example, on the day after the crash of Asiana Airlines Flight 214, while the wreckage was still on the ground, representatives of the airline stated that the evidence available suggested that the crew was at fault. Representatives said that the pilot in control of the Boeing 777 had little experience flying that kind of plane. Although he had nearly 10,000 hours flying other planes, he only had 43 hours on the 77 aircraft. Despite this, the NTSB chairman, Demer Hersman, said her agency was a long way, perhaps months, from reaching a conclusion of what caused the crash. While human error may be the root cause, a thorough investigation should first eliminate all other possibilities. The causal chain should be evaluated to the initiating root cause. The outcome is not likely the root cause. An underlying factor or root cause can be determined by multi-layered why questions or some other predetermined method. In our program of regulation of veterinary biologics, the CVB expects manufacturers of veterinary biologics to perform a systematic approach when dealing with a noncompliance to requirements. A noncompliance must undergo a root cause analysis along with a corrective preventive action. Root cause analysis. Product deviation. The cereal was produced outside of outline because production directions changed. This was determined to be document review error. Fire damage. The equipment was destroyed because the sprinklers did not activate. This was determined to be sprinkler error. While document review may be an issue, is it truly the cause of the deviation? The sprinklers may be an issue, but did they start the fire? Determining the root cause can be like chasing dominoes. You need to identify what knocked down the first domino, not just the domino that knocked down this domino. Failure to accurately determine the true root cause is like saying that equipment was destroyed because sprinklers did not activate during the fire. While the sprinklers may have contributed to the damage, were they truly the root cause? Did they start the fire? Common analysis errors. Lack of actual root cause analysis. It is common that the immediate cause of the final outcome is described as the root cause. Simply restating what happened does not address the action. Condensed or inaccurate problem description. The conclusion of the investigation should be substantiated with data, credible functional analysis, and impact. All aspects of the nonconformist need to be addressed. Do you know if other areas were affected or could be affected? Actions only correct the nonconformance and do not define corrective actions. Often the actions described are corrections, not corrective actions. They address the immediate occurrence but do not address the root cause. A proactive evaluation may be necessary to address all aspects and finalize the risk assessment to determine if the actions taken will prevent a reoccurrence. Symptom approach versus root cause analysis. Don't just put a bandage on the issue. Symptoms can be covered or repaired by corrections. They are not the root cause. Perhaps errors are not always a result of worker carelessness. Is it possible that errors are the result of defects in the system and that the people are only a part of this process? Rather than simply training or retraining, should we find out why the issue continues to occur? Rather than choosing not to take time to investigate, wouldn't it be better to fix the item for good so it doesn't come back? Effective root cause analysis. Cause analysis is most likely the weakest part of all corrective action processes. The hardest part of the process can be determining what the problem is, but you need to get to the root before you can take meaningful corrective action. This approach may be a fishbone type evaluation, a causal tree, or other means. Don't be satisfied with the first answer that comes to mind. Don't take the easy way out. Don't start squatching. If you've ever watched Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot, you've seen examples of investigations where the investigators have already determined the cause of the occurrence. To them, footprints found are the result of Bigfoot. During one episode, a researcher said, Sasquatches can disguise their voices to sound like other animals, so if you hear a coyote, it could be a Sasquatch. If you've already decided what the root cause is before you begin, you may inadvertently distort the data to support your hypothesis. Begin with an open mind. Don't start looking for Bigfoot. So then how do we get to the answer? Effective root cause analysis. Don't stop at the first answer. Keep asking. If insufficient training is determined, was the training material sufficient? Was enough time allowed? Did the training cover the right subject matter? Did the employee even understand the material? Did the process change? Was the training sufficient and the employee overworked? As I mentioned earlier, following the crash of Asiana Airlines Flight 214, when it was determined that the pilot had only 43 hours of experience on that type of aircraft, the NTSB chairman said the agency was a long way from reaching a conclusion on what caused the crash. They chose to continue asking rather than stopping at the first answer. Root cause analysis is asking why the problem occurred, and then continuing to ask why that happened until we reach the fundamental element that failed. As children, we continue to ask why, and ask, and ask, and ask. As adults, we lose that quality. Albert Einstein once said, "I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious." Don't stop asking why just because you hit a target. Keep asking until you've hit the bullseye. Here are examples of 5 conclusions or actions which have not reached the target. The employee is the root cause. Management cannot be held responsible for the actions of the employees. Employees themselves are rarely the true root cause. There is often some other factor which caused them to do what they did. Further, management is responsible for what happens in the facility. The root cause was an unclear procedure. A minor change was made to the standard operating procedure. How did the original SOP pass through the process with an unclear procedure? How can you be sure changes sent through the same process will be better? What is it about the process that makes it unclear? An employee failed to follow a procedure. The procedure was changed to require another person to verify that they did it right. Why did the first employee fail? Is adding a verification step simply a band-aid to the real root cause? Human error was identified and more training was required. Was the employee trained originally? If so, was the training effective? If not, how can you be sure that additional training will be effective? Only the QA or QC department were involved in the investigation. All groups involved in the incident should provide input in the investigation. I will discuss this more later in the presentation. 5 why analysis is more than just a simple question-asking activity. It requires the right people in the room discussing all of the possible root causes of a nonconformance. The most effective analysis begins with gathering the right people. A disciplined 5 why approach will push individuals to think outside the box and reach a root cause where the team can take action to prevent the problem instead of just treating symptoms. It's important to discuss the issue with subject matter experts who can answer the what-ifs. It is also important to include people who do not have a vested interest in what the root cause may be. The manufacturers and maintenance crew of a plane wouldn't mind if the root cause of a crash was pilot error. Similarly, a production site may believe low potency is the result of a QC testing issue, while QC may believe it's a production issue. All sides must be considered. Using the analysis of asking why isn't new. Ben Franklin published one in Poor Richard's Almanac. For want of a nail, a shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, a horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of the rider, an army was lost. For want of an army, a battle was lost. For want of a battle, the war was lost. For want of a war, the kingdom was lost. Each domino knocked down another domino until the kingdom was lost. Why? All for the want of a nail. Sometimes you need to ask why more than 5 times, but you get the idea. Variations in processes must be addressed by competent personnel who are knowledgeable about the product's structure, function, performance, life expectation, and the manufacturing process. Deviations from accepted scientific approaches must be justified in a manner considered generally acceptable by experts in the field. The investigation and risk assessment must be documented and detailed so that an external source can adequately evaluate the appropriateness and conclusion of the investigation. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. That brings us to documentation. Deviations from accepted scientific approaches must be justified in a manner considered generally acceptable by experts in the field. Proper documentation must include a clear statement of the reason for the investigation. Do you know what happened? Have you determined why? How did you come up with the answer? Has it happened before? Has it happened somewhere else? Is it possible it will happen again? What did you do to prevent it? How do you know that what you did will work? Can you prove it? Section 6 of the CVB Quality Management System Manual describes steps for corrective action to be performed and documented. Cite the specific requirement from which the deviation occurred. Document the relevant information regarding the nonconformance. Perform a root cause analysis. Explore possible corrective actions and select a corrective action plan. Monitor the effectiveness of the corrective action plan. Document the above steps and have it reviewed by management. The flowchart shown outlines the CVB's expectations regarding the actions taken and the assessment of an incident when manufacturing is not performed in accordance with the outline of production or the regulations. As shown in the upper green box, when a cereal manufactured with a nonconformance to the outline of production or regulations is discovered, the firm must determine the status of the cereal or cereals affected. Specifically, is the discovery post-marketing release? If submission of the APHIS Form 2008 or samples to the CVB has occurred, the firm must follow Veterinary Services Memorandum 800.57 regarding notification of the event to the CVB. As shown in the red box, cereals which have been released by CVB are subject to stop distribution and sale until the licensee or permittee has performed an investigation or risk assessment. If the licensee or permittee chooses not to voluntarily stop distribution and sale, and the CVB determines an adequate assessment has not been performed, the CVB may mandate stop distribution and sale. Remember, as described in Veterinary Services Memorandum 800.57, veterinary biological product that has been released for marketing which has not been prepared according to the procedures in the filed outline of production or the regulations may be worthless, contaminated, dangerous, or harmful. Once the status and risk of the product released to the market has been resolved, the licensee or permittee can make a decision to continue manufacturing or a proposed method of disposition of the product. In conclusion, root cause analysis is a method to focus our efforts on the true root cause of a nonconformity so that we truly prevent its reoccurrence. Each investigation is an opportunity to find the information needed to eliminate the problem. To identify the root cause, we have to ask why over and over until we reach it. Finding the true root cause helps reduce repeated errors and frustration, reduces costs, and maintains quality and compliance. It is CVB's expectation that the licensee or permittee should have a documented, systematic approach to dealing with deviations to the outline of production or the regulations. Any deviation, regardless of presumptive minor risk, must undergo the same detailed and documented product marketing risk evaluation. Deviations discovered following release of products are subject to stop distribution and sale of product unless or until a risk evaluation has been performed. All incidents where manufacturing is not performed in accordance with the outline of production or regulations must undergo a root cause analysis along with a corrective or preventive action. The investigation and final quality risk assessment must be documented and detailed so that appropriateness of the conclusion of the investigation can be adequately evaluated. Thank you.